Hey everybody, it's Justin with LED Detailing, and today I'm going to show you how we went from this to this. Stay tuned. Okay, jumping right into it. So the first thing I had to do was come up with a design for the studio. And what I came up with was removing this wall and then building a new wall perpendicular to the wall that we're taking out. Once I understood what the layout should look like, it made everything easier. It was a matter of removing what needed to be removed and building what needed to be built based on the dimensions that I had. And in the meantime, prior to taking out the wall, I went ahead and ordered LED hex lights. That way I could get them made and then sent to me. So it was a custom built thing. I sent the dimensions that I wanted to fill the room with. I wanted light wall to wall. So I did that, worked out some pricing with them. So that was underway while I was working on tearing out the wall and the rest of what needed to happen. The next thing that happened was went ahead and put up new drywall, and after that we had to tape and bed, and then also there was some patchwork that needed to happen where the wall was, so strips of drywall had to be placed in there and then taped and bedded. Once it was taped and bedded, had to let the mud dry, and then we were able to sand and then do a second coat. And so once that was done, then it was time to sand. Got everything all sanded up, and I decided that I was going to work on the small room first. So I went ahead and prepped that entire room. So I removed, there was a light in there, the walls were pretty bad, there was baseboard that needed to be put in, some baseboard that was kind of messed up. So I worked on all of that, got the baseboard all set in place, and once I did all of that and got everything prepped, then I painted, or first I actually primed the room, because and for that room I used Zinsser for priming, because the walls were painted gloss and they were pretty, I would say stained and just pretty bad. So went ahead and primed the walls, that way I wouldn't have bleed through, because I was going to use white, just a pure white. I used Behr for that, and I got it primed. Then after that I went ahead and painted the entire room, including the baseboards. Now the baseboards are going to be covered with polyaspartic. However, I wanted to give it a good, let's call it a good base, I would say, for the polyaspartic to adhere to. So painted the door, so I removed the hardware, or actually I just removed the door handle and went ahead and painted the door. So same thing, I went ahead and primed, and then I painted. I primed the entire door. I only painted the inside and then the sides of the door, and then of course the top. The next thing that I needed to do was to transfer all of the lawn equipment organizers from the main area to the small room, and so I went ahead and did that. I used a level to get it all level, took my time, made sure I did it right, and I think it turned out great. It opens up the main space that I had and enables me to have a nice clean area for all of the lawn equipment. Once I was completed with the small room, I went ahead and moved to the large room, and the next thing that I ended up doing was washing the floors. So I went ahead and cleaned out half of the area and cleaned up the floors, washed them down with some cleaner and water, and got those all situated. After that, I needed to focus on all the things that were needed in the large room. So for example, I need to remove a fan, I need to remove all of the outlet and switch covers. I also had to remove all of the lights, prepare all of the walls. So I patched any holes that were in the walls, caulked everywhere that I needed to caulk, prepped around the window area. Then I removed as many things as possible from the room that I don't need in there, because the main studio is going to only have what's needed to do the work, not anything else. So everything else goes into the garage or elsewhere. Only detailing things can be within the main detailing area. After all of that, I went ahead and taped up everything that needed to be taped. I also used foam to fill in the gaps for the garage door, which I'm going to replace, but I still wanted to seal it up as well as possible for now. So I used foam. I ended up cutting it, and then I ended up painting foam. That way I could seal off the bottom of the door. Once I caulked everything, filled in any kind of holes, repaired larger holes, I then moved on to priming the entire room. For this, I used Zinsser as well. I ended up using white. I probably should have colored it, to be honest, but at this point it doesn't matter because I've already painted. Anyway, I went ahead and primed the entire area. So the first thing I did was, and I probably should have mentioned this on the small room, the way that I typically paint is I will trim everything out and then I'll come back and roll it. Because I've done enough painting, what I end up doing is I will go around the room one time for trimming it out, so brushing all the corners. I will come back for a second time, and then once that's dry, then actually it doesn't even need to be fully dry, then I come back in and I start rolling. So I went ahead and rolled. I ended up doing 2 coats as well on rolling, only because the walls were in such bad shape as far as just different staining and whatnot, no matter how much I cleaned it. I didn't want any bleed through when I went to my final paint, so I did 2 coats for that. The only thing that I didn't paint as far as the main things in the area would be the garage door and the entry door. I didn't paint the entry door because I spent a lot of time getting the the white to look right when I painted that door. So I didn't want to mess up my work. So I went ahead and opted to keep it white. I figured I'd see how it looks. And to be honest with you, I think it looks good. So I left it as is. Once I was done priming the entire room, then it was time for paint. And what I used for paint was a new paint by Behr. It's called Dynasty. It's supposed to be kind of the best of all of their paints, and it's supposed to have characteristics that no other paint has in their lineup. So scuff resistance and 1 coat and all these things. So I've used Behr Marquee before in 1 coat, and I've had really good success heavily loading up my roller. So trimming out twice, heavily loading up my roller, rolling a section, and repeating that process. I've had really, really good luck as far as the single coat goes. With the Dynasty, this is the first time I've used it, it wasn't quite as smooth. Once I put the paint on, I could roll it kind of onto the wall, and I would maybe go over it twice. And then after that, it would start, I don't know how to explain it fully, but instead of covering everything, it would leave little splotches of the original color, in this case, kind of a creamy, whitish color. So I ended up having to go over it twice. And even though I went over it twice, there are still some areas where I'm just not as happy as I've been in the past with their Behr Marquee product. So yes, the paint looks good, and I was able to get it consistent looking and everything that I wanted. However, it didn't meet expectations, let's put it that way. So, I would imagine once Behr gets enough feedback, they'll make some small changes to address those issues. So also, if you've had the same issue with the new Behr Dynasty, please drop a comment down below. I'd love to hear your experience as well. Maybe I did something wrong, or maybe it's just the way the paint is and either some small changes need to be made, or I just need to learn how to use it a little better. So now that I've got the paint on the walls, all the lights and everything is removed, now I can move on to the electrical. So the first thing I'm going to do is focus on the ceiling, and there are, I don't know, let's call it 10 outlets or so in the ceiling. Plus there's some other areas that need covers. So I went ahead and focused on that. I removed all of the white colored or cream colored or tan, whatever you want to call it, colored outlets. I went ahead and removed all those and replaced them with black ones with a little bit more modern look. And then I followed that up with black covers. So it turned out really nice. I'm happy with it. And then it's time for the light. Okay, so now we move on to the lights. And here's what I've got so far. I went ahead and put a couple pieces together because what I want to do is I want to be able to take this end and this end here, and I want to get them evenly spaced all the way across this long wall. So the wall goes from there all the way back there, and it's about a 29-foot span. And so a couple things. One thing I did was you need to test out the lights as you go. That's what they recommend. That's kind of what everybody recommends that I've seen. So what I did was I took a cable that I had and I wired it with a couple wire nuts. That way I could plug them in as I go, and then I know what I'm up against. So the next thing I did was I measured out the actual distance between here and here. So they gave me dimensions on, it's called a schematic-ish. They call it instructions, but it basically shows you what needs to go where. So I wanted to compare actual versus drawing. So I measured everything. So all the walls, I already kind of knew what they were, but I wanted to double measure after all the painting and things were done. And doing that, I want this wall here, this can be the focal point when you walk into the room. Considering that, so you're gonna be kind of looking at it in a view similar to this when you walk in the door. So I want this corner to be as clean and neat as possible. And of course, I want them to be even along the long wall. So by doing that, I have determined that I need to be 6 inches away from the left wall, which is this one. And I also need to be 6 inches away from the back wall. That's what I'm gonna do. There are some obstacles along the way. So one being the drop down door for the attic. So I'm gonna kind of see how I'm doing once I get to that point, and I'll make a decision at that point on whether I go up and onto the door, or do I go around it, what do I do? So we'll see how that goes. As you can see, I've gone ahead and made up 2 sections. What I'm gonna do next is I'll go ahead and mount these 2, and then I'll run all the bulbs from that point. So I'll build it out from this point here. I may do it by myself. I may call over a neighbor and see if I can get a hand lifting it up. As I was doing my research on these things, it was a little bit, there are some unknowns, I guess, for me. One of them was this hole right here is for mounting to the ceiling. Since I'm going directly onto the drywall, I'm gonna have to use the right screws to fasten these. They're super light. The screws also want to pull through drywall easily, so I need to be kind of careful when I'm doing it, which I will be. Each and every one of the plastic clips has a hole for a screw. So once I get it kind of lined up on the wall, I'll go ahead and fasten at those points. As I'm moving along from there, this will all be stable. And then the next one's like a single light. Once I put a single light into, say, here, it'll be supported by the strength of the rest of this. I'm gonna go ahead and see what I can do about getting this thing mounted up. I have roughly 244 lights that I could potentially put up here. I may put some on the walls as well. So I may deviate a little bit from this drawing that was provided by the manufacturer. I guess one more thing is, if you look, and hopefully we can see this, it tells you A, the wiring points, B, it has a letter B right here, and what letter B is, there's no power coming into or out of this area here. So that's where power stops. New power would start here and come out this way. So they have X here. So I'm gonna have to have blanks here, B. So the final grade will look something like this. It's actually gonna be a little bit different only because I'm making some changes on the fly. Yeah, so if you're interested in purchasing some of these yourself, I can leave a link in the description, or you can go ahead and shoot me a message and I can get you in touch with the company. I paid roughly $600 for 244 lamps and then all the accessories and stuff. So okay, so I'll take some video as I'm going along here and we'll see how it goes. Oh boy. So for those of you that don't know me very well, those that do know me, this can be no surprise to them. So I'm a big fan of music. So I have a high fidelity music system that I've been building for years, some tube components and some various other things, great cables and preamp and stuff. Anyway, today my choices are gonna be probably some old school rap, potentially some ICP, and we're gonna mix it in with some, let's call it some Pantera, some Slipknot, probably throw in some Slayer for good measure. So it's gonna be heavy metal and some old school rap. So that being said, I'm gonna get going on this. Okay, so of course I had video issues for whatever reason. The video of me getting my friend Travis over here to help me hang these. Anyway, so we got this section hung, and from here I can do it by myself. And what I did was I measured from that point to the corner, and same thing here, and I made sure that they're the exact same distance, like a little bit over 6 inches. And then I also did the same with the back side. So here, so the wall to there. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue working on this. I'm gonna do piece by piece, section by section. I just noticed something weird. Oh, no, I don't care. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue from here. Okay, so I ran into an interesting one here. Let me go ahead and bring you up to it and show you what I did. This piece went all the way across, and I ended up having to cut this, push this forward, and then now this will fit in its place, or in the place. Second thing is gonna be this spring. I'm gonna have to move it probably down. Anyway, I'll mess with this, see what happens. Okay, so we're making good progress so far. Probably, I don't know, let's call it 70% done, roughly. Yeah, so far so good. I'm doing temporary wiring for now, so if you look, there's some wires kind of hanging down. Those will go away. It'll be wired properly. So when it's all done, just need something temporary. But yeah, so far so good. I would say there are some obstacles. I'm gonna be going around some of them. Others, for example, I had an outlet cover that it was just kind of going across the edge of it, so I trimmed the outlet cover, let it sit up against that. Came out good. So far I haven't had any lights that don't work, so that's kind of a bonus. Plus they sent a few extra bulbs. That being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get back to this. Just wanted to kind of give a briefing. Maybe one more thing. So if you look at, okay, see these lights here that aren't lit up? But those are gonna be lit up by the new section I'm gonna be working on. So I'm gonna do a time lapse of that. That's what we're gonna do, so. All right, with any luck, I can get this done today. This is day 2. Day 1 was kind of a lot. But yeah, now I've got the hang of it. It's not ultra difficult. You just kind of have to pay attention as you go. So, all right, time for a time lapse. Do a 360. Okay, so I'm just about near the end of this video. Just have a couple small things to button up. One is going to be this 250 volt outlet. I already killed the power to that over in the box, so I'm just changing out this one, and there's one right there. So I'm going to go ahead and change those out. I used my multimeter to make sure that the power was off, and after that I'm going to go ahead and get this place ready for the floor. So let me show you what I've got so far. So I have all this empty space all the way across. And what I was hoping is that people who view this video, if you have any ideas for good storage for any of the tools, any of the products, something to replace the chemical storage cabinet over there, I'd really appreciate it. I could definitely use some tips and hints, see what you guys think, and then based on what you guys come up with and what I see on my own, I'll go ahead and make some decisions on what I'm going to use to fill up those spaces. Just give you a quick view of everything. So here's the lighting, all the outlets, all the light switches, everything's been replaced with new stuff. I'm also running an air filter down here just to keep dust down a bit, and it seems to help quite a bit. I leave it running full time. I painted this. I also painted the outside of that, so all the trim, everything else. The entire walls, everything. I did a majority of the work myself. I had Travis, my friend, help me with these over here. The footage didn't come through, so sorry, Travis. I'll try to get you on when we move to the floor. I'll get you back on here and give you a proper shout out. So, but anyway, yeah, he gave me a hand starting the lighting, first few lights, and then I did the rest. I even replaced all the receptacles in the ceiling. I painted this room in here, so now that has miscellaneous storage things going on in there. I just got a door handle for it, so I'll go ahead and install that. I left the door white. I like it being white, so I think it looks okay, not bad. And the only other thing I was gonna say is attention to detail. I enjoy detail, and I also pay very close attention to it. So when I painted this and this, I took everything apart. I took all the hardware off of the door, of course removed it, and then same with those. I took everything off, painted them, and then I reinstalled them, and I think the look is good. I think it looks neat, clean, tidy. I also painted the baseboards, and however, except those are going to get polyaspartic, or we'll call it epoxy, but it's going to be polyaspartic on the floor. It's just a much longer lasting epoxy. So work in progress. I know it's not perfect, but so far so good. I'm quite pleased. It really opens up the space. There's probably not going to be much of a need for this. Maybe I'll keep it in here, maybe I won't. Yeah, so this is it up until the point that we do the floor, and I would certainly appreciate your help in deciding what cabinets and whatnot I should put in here for all my detailing stuff, all my detailing supplies and whatnot. So any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Please feel free to drop a comment down below, reach out to me. You can also reach me at info@needledetailing.com. That's a direct way to message me as well with thoughts and ideas on what I should do with all this bare space on the walls. So, all right. Next up is the floors. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'm going to be looking forward to your comments. By all means, please. I'd love to hear your thoughts so far, good or bad. Feedback's always good from my perspective. I appreciate it, open, honest feedback. I prefer to be that way myself, so people ask my opinion. They get my real opinion. I don't make up some things. On that note, hope you have a good one, and we will see you on the next one, which is going to be the floor. Take care, and we'll see you soon. 360.